Good Morning America has benched their anchors for, canoodling.
Yeah,
and
I
whatnot.
think it's like a lot of things. I think, the behind the scenes of what was going on in GMA3, that it was getting scandy. And this is now like all being unearthed. And there's a lot of discussions about it. So right after we talked about this with Amanda, it came out that TJ Holmes and Amy Robach and her husband had already been separated and they are finalizing their divorce. But then there was like, people were like, well, no, TJ and Amy have been together for so long. Like, I was getting some DMs from people who were, in the know or associated with ABC over there or something, being like, wow, we've all known about this for forever. He's a dog. Like, this isn't the first time. And then there's been reports that he also had an affair with a producer, and that went on for a while. And so now, and people were like, yeah, so no wonder his wife, the theories people were throwing around is like, after that happened, and then he started to get into like another one, that his wife probably hired the PI.
Yeah, so this was confusing because I think people had
I
different...
think that's the most one I think that
they different takes on it, because they were like, all right, if they were both separated from their partners, ended up, getting together, they are like, we're in love, whatever, then I think... fine, keep them on air.
If that's the case, then that's fine.
Right, and the ratings went up, keep them on air, if everyone's cool with it, whatever.
Yeah.
I think there's some other things happening behind the scenes, or else they would not take them off air.
Executives are greedy. Like, they want the ratings, and I bet you like Thursday, Friday, it was so high. They're fucking cracking jokes, TJ and Amy. They're like, what a week, huh? Like, they're making jokes. And so I feel like if that was really all there was, executives would be like, this is kind of like good for ratings. Let's keep them on. People are interested in their relationship. Maybe we can market this as like, oh, they were separated, now they're in love. Like, it's a love story. Like, it's those relationships were over. But for them to be taken off, it's like, okay, there's some other things going on. Or people who work on the show were like, could be really upset by it.
They could be saying they're uncomfortable. Yeah, so I think that there's some other things happening with TJ where people are like, he was hooking up with multiple women in the offices, which then causes a whole other problem. Yeah. So I think I've
just been hearing that this has been a thing for years.
So maybe they're taking them off and they're like, we got to figure out what's going on with this man TJ behind the scenes. Yeah. And it sounds like all the blame's going on TJ right now. But it's more just like, I think
it was like Amy got the story out, like Amy's story of was like, oh, her and her husband have separated for a while.
Right. And it's like, I think it's just more stories are now coming out about TJ. We're not hearing more stories about Amy. We're hearing more stories about TJ. Yeah. And so I don't know.
It's like he had another full-blown affair with a producer. So
it's one of those things where you're like, personal issues. Does that really have to do with their jobs? Shouldn't you leave them on air?
Right.
Leave them on. People get over it in 2 weeks. Shit flies by. But if there's other stuff going on behind the scenes, which I assume is what's going on,
like then really like actually affecting
the workplace. Then probably something needs to be done. But I don't really know where I stand.
Because it's also different. Like, it's not like, it's one thing if they did separate things. Like, it's like they were both under the umbrella. They're on the same show. They're, so it's like they don't have their own shows. They're on the same show. And
sometimes when these topics arise, I feel like people feel like I can't talk about them because of my situation, but my situation is so different. But people will just lump any coworker situation into one, but this has nothing. They are so
single people
hooking up.
Their own thing.
And I also dated somebody else in the office, right? But there was nothing like this, and so
it would have been It would have even just been different if you guys were co-hosts. You're not co-hosts.
Yeah, but I feel like whenever this comes up, like I already had people saying like, who are you to talk? And it's like, yo, this is a totally different situation. Totally different not thing. Even close.
And everybody, like, just because something has happened in your life doesn't mean you can't talk about when it happens to other people.
Right, but I'm like,
similar.
I know, I'm so hesitant to like give my opinion on this because I don't want to hear
that. I do think, I wanted to say that I saw TikTok.
But once again, this is so different.
Completely different.
Like, nobody cheated on anybody. No. Like, I just happened to have dated somebody else. No, but that's besides the point.
Like I said, I think there's multiple affairs situation happening here. And I saw TikTok from an interview of when Reese Witherspoon went on GMA. And it was like Michael Strahan, Robin Roberts, and George Stephanopoulos. And they were like, joking about the next season and coming up with plot lines. And I think Reese had said something like, oh, well, like, is it crazy here? Like, whatever. And Robin Roberts was like, oh, we could or was it Robin Roberts? It might have been somebody else. Oh, no, it might have actually been Amy. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it might have actually been Amy. I'm throwing names out there that I don't know. But it may have been, I forget who the third person was. The moral of the story was someone said, oh, I bet we could come up with some plot lines for you. And George Stephanopoulos was like, he goes, I think we already have. So could be saying something that of the length of time. Yeah, George.
Listen, if nobody was
throwing subtle hints.
If nobody was paying attention to these two, they are now.
No, they definitely are. It became massive news. And yeah, I think people were like, well, because it was just crazy. I know it takes a long time and sometimes for things, a lot of meetings, decisions to be made. But it's like they kept them on air for those couple days and then waited for the next week to be like, all right, now they're off. It's like, okay, all right, we got that boost and now we'll let them go. Exactly. I bet you nobody was watching on Monday.
Right. We'll see what happens.